Chapter 1. The Flaw Tower had no mercy. Alara felt the stone beneath her palms for only a heartbeat before her brother's hands closed around her throat. She couldn't see his face, she'd never seen anything, but she knew the shape of his rage. It had been building for months, ever since their father named her heir to the Greymore estates despite her blindness. Despite tradition, despite Seelan's furious pride. You should have refused, he hissed, his breath hot against her ear. You should have known your place. She clawed at his wrists, gasping. But he was stronger. He'd always been stronger. The family advisors had said her other senses compensated for her lack of sight, that she could read people through tone and touch, navigate rooms by sound and memory. They'd called it a gift. Seelan called it an abomination. The estate is mine, he snarled, dragging her backward. Her heels scraped stone. Wind howled through the tower's open archway. Father was mad to choose you. A blind girl ruling Greymore? The lords would laugh. The merchants would flee. I'm saving our house. Seelan, her voice broke. Please, goodbye, sister. He shoved. The world became weightless. Alara didn't scream. There wasn't time. The wind tore at her gown and hair as she plummeted, the rush of air drowning out everything but the hammering of her heart. She tried to count the seconds. She'd always been good with numbers, but terror scattered her thoughts like leaves. 3 seconds. 4. The ground would come soon. Stone courtyard. Instant death. She was going to die without ever seeing the stars. Then impact. But not stone. Not pain. Arms closed around her. Impossibly fast. Impossibly strong. The momentum reversed so sharply her stomach lurched. She felt herself rising, then settling, cradled against something solid and cold. The wind stopped. The falling stopped. She gasped, disoriented, her hands fisting in fabric silk. Velvet? As her rescuer landed with inhuman grace. Breathe. The voice was low, male, edged with something ancient. You're not dead. Alara's chest heaved. Her fingers trembled where they gripped his coat. Who quiet? She heard Seelan's voice from far above, shouting orders. Footsteps on stone. Her brother thought she'd hit the ground. He thought she was broken. The stranger holding her shifted, and she felt the strange coldness of his body even through layers of clothing. No heartbeat. She pressed her palm flat against his chest, searching for the rhythm of life, and found only stillness. Her breath caught. You're not human. No, he moved swiftly, carrying her away from the tower. She heard gates creaking, horses stamping, the distant clatter of guards mobilizing. But her rescuer made no sound as he walked, no footfalls, no labored breathing. Just that eerie, perfect silence. Put me down, Alara whispered. They'll see. They won't. And they didn't. She heard men rush past them, shouting about the body, about searching the courtyard, about alerting the Lord. But no one stopped. No one challenged them. It was as if they'd become ghosts. The stranger carried her through what felt like a maze, down narrow passages, through doorways that groaned on ancient hinges, into spaces that smelled of earth and old stone. A crypt, she realized, or catacombs beneath the estate, places she'd never been allowed to explore. Finally, he set her down on something soft. A bench, perhaps, cushioned with moth-eaten velvet. She heard him step back, but she could still feel his presence like a cold star in the darkness. Why did you catch me? Her voice was steadier now, though her hands still shook. Why not let me fall? I don't let interesting things break. I'm not a thing. No, a pause. You're not. She heard him moving around the space, lighting candles, perhaps, though the light meant nothing to her. But she felt the faint warmth, smelled the beeswax. He was trying to make her comfortable, or distract her. My brother threw me from the tower, she said quietly. He wants me dead. I know. You were watching. I've been watching your house for weeks. His voice came from somewhere to her left now. The tension between you and your brother. The whispers about succession. Your father's failing health. A soft sound, fabric sliding against stone. I knew one of you would break eventually. And you just waited? Patience is a virtue when you have eternity. Alara's breath caught. You're a vampire. The word hung in the air like smoke. She'd heard stories everyone had, but the vampires were supposed to stay in their own territories, bound by ancient laws, governing themselves through shadowy councils called houses. They didn't interfere with mortal succession disputes. House Corvinus, he said. I'm Lucian. And yes, I'm a vampire. Why are you here? Because your estate sits on contested land. Because your brother has been meeting with House Varen in secret. Because when mortals play games with vampire territories, we pay attention. she processed this slowly. House Varen, they're your enemies? Rivals? His tone sharpened. There's a difference. But if Seelan trades your lands to them in exchange for support, it could shift the balance of power in this region. Your death would have been the first domino. So you saved me to stop a war. I saved you because you were falling. His voice softened, just slightly. What happens next is your choice. Alara sat in the darkness that was her permanent companion, feeling the weight of his words. Her brother had tried to kill her. Her home was no longer safe. And now she sat in a crypt with a vampire who claimed he'd been watching her family for weeks. She should be terrified. Instead, she felt strangely, impossibly calm. What do you want from me? She asked. Lucian was quiet for a long moment. Then, time, shelter, information about your brother's plans, another pause, and perhaps, conversation. It's been decades since anyone interesting fell into my arms. Despite everything, Alara felt her lips twitch. You caught me. Semantics. She heard him settle onto something across from her, a stone bench, perhaps, and the candles flickered with the movement of air. She wondered what he looked like. Pale, probably. Sharp-featured. Cold. But his voice wasn't cold. It was careful, measured, lonely. If I stay, she said slowly, my brother will hunt me. Let him try. The estate is lost to you either way. Lucian's tone was blunt but not unkind. Your brother will claim you died. He'll forge documents, bribe witnesses. By morning, you'll be mourned and buried. You can't go back. The truth of it settled over her like frost. Everything she'd known, her rooms, her routines, the servants who'd learned to announce themselves before entering, gone. Her inheritance meaningless. Her life erased. Then what do I do? You survive. She heard him stand, heard the whisper of his coat. And you help me stop House Varen from swallowing this region whole. He moved closer. Stay here tonight. Rest. Tomorrow, we'll discuss terms. Terms? I'm offering protection. Alara Greymore. But nothing in my world is free. She heard him walk toward the exit, his footsteps finally audible now that he wasn't hiding. At the threshold he paused. Sleep if you can, he said quietly. You're safe here. No one knows these catacombs but me. Lucian? Yes? Thank you. For catching me. Silence. Then, softer than before. You're welcome. And he was gone. Chapter 2. The stillness of Stony Alara didn't sleep. How could she, when every sound might be her brother's men discovering the catacombs, when every shift of air might be Lucian returning or something worse? She sat on the velvet bench, her hands folded in her lap, and listened to the silence that wasn't quite silence. Water dripped somewhere distant, stone settled with ancient groans, and beneath it all, a whisper of movement that might have been rats, or might have been something else entirely. She'd never feared the dark. It had been her companion since birth, familiar and constant. But this darkness felt different, older, heavier, as if the weight of centuries pressed down through layers of earth and bone. When dawn came, she felt it in the subtle warming of the air. The way sound changed texture. Lucian still hadn't returned. Alara stood carefully, running her fingers along the wall. Rough stone, damp with moisture. She followed it slowly, mapping the space. The chamber was roughly circular, perhaps 20 paces across. The bench where she'd sat, a table she found. It with her hip, stifled a gasp covered with what felt like books and loose papers. Candles, burned down to nubs, and against the far wall, something that made her freeze, a coffin. Her fingers traced the smooth wood, the ornate carvings. It was beautiful work. She could feel the artistry in the detailed patterns. Roses, perhaps. Or thorns. Empty, she discovered, as she carefully lifted the lid. Just silk lining and the faint scent of earth. It's decorative. Alara spun, her heart hammering. She hadn't heard him enter. I don't sleep in coffins, Lucian continued, his voice coming from the doorway. That's a myth, though I did let the rumor persist for a few decades. It kept treasure hunters away. Where do you sleep? The question left her lips before she could stop it. A legitimate question given our arrangement. She heard him move into the room, heard the soft clink of glass. I have rooms deeper in the catacombs, windowless, secure. The death sleep requires absolute darkness, any light, and we wake in agony. But the coffin was my grandfather's, and I'm sentimental. Vampires have grandfathers? We have families, bloodlines, the same petty jealousies and ancient feuds as mortals. He set something down on the table, a tray. From the sound of it, I brought food, bread, cheese, preserved fruit. The kitchens above are in chaos over your supposed death, so I raided the pantries. Elara's stomach clenched. She hadn't realized how hungry she was. You went back to the estate? Before dawn, your brother held a very convincing vigil over your empty coffin. He even wept. Lucian's tone turned sharp. He's a better actor than I expected. She made her way back to the bench, and Lucian guided the tray to her lap, his fingers cold even through her sleeve. She ate slowly, trying to process the reality of her situation. Dead, as far as the world knew. Trapped underground with a vampire, dependent on his mercy. What happens now? She asked between bites. Now we wait. Seelan will move quickly to consolidate power he'll need to before anyone questions your death too closely. He'll meet with House Varen within the week, I expect. When he does, I need to know what he's offering them. And how do I help with that? I can't exactly walk into his meetings. No, but you know his habits, his weaknesses, his patterns. Lucian settled onto what sounded like the coffin's edge. You've lived with him your whole life. You know how he thinks. Elara considered this, tracing her finger along the rim of her cup. He's ambitious, reckless when he's confident. He'll want to celebrate his victory, he always does. Wine, probably. Women, he'll brag to his inner circle. Who's in that circle? Marcus, the master at arms. Probably Lord Theron from the southern estates. He's always hated my father's progressive policies. And, she hesitated, Elena Corvath. She's been his lover for months. Lucian went very still. Corvath, you're certain? Yes. Why? House Corvath is a tributary bloodline to House Varen. If Seelan's lover is connected to them. He stood abruptly, pacing. This goes deeper than I thought. Elara set down her cup. Explain it to me. The houses. How your world works. Why? Because if I'm going to help you, I need to understand what I'm caught in the middle of. Lucian was quiet for a long moment. Then she heard him drag something across the floor, a chair, perhaps, and sit across from her. There are 5 great houses in this region, he began. Corvinus, my house, holds the northern territories. We're old, traditional, and we believe in the Accords. The Accords? The laws that govern vampire behavior. No turning mortals without consent. No feeding to the point of death. No interfering in mortal politics without cause. They were written 400 years ago, after a war that nearly destroyed both our species. His voice darkened. House Varen believes the Accords are outdated. They want to expand, to rule openly, not from shadows. They've been pushing boundaries for decades, and mortals with ambition make useful pawns, like my brother, like your brother. Elara absorbed this, her mind racing. So if Seelan gives them our lands, they'll have a foothold in Corvinus territory. Other houses will see it as weakness. The balance will shift. Lucian leaned forward. She felt the displacement of air. And once the balance shifts, war becomes inevitable. Over land, over everything. Feeding rights, territory, the question of whether vampires should rule mortals or coexist with them. He paused. Thousands would die, mortal and vampire alike. The weight of it settled over her. She'd thought this was about her brother's betrayal, about succession and estates. But she'd stumbled into something vast and terrible, centuries of tension held in check by fragile treaties. Why tell me all this? She asked quietly. You could have just used me for information and kept me ignorant, because I don't keep people in the dark unnecessarily. His voice softened. And because you asked. That matters. She heard him stand, heard him move to the table. Papers rustled. I need to investigate Elena Corvath, he said, which means I need to attend tonight's court session at the House Varen estate. I'll be gone until after midnight. Court session? Vampires are bureaucratic creatures. We have councils, hearings, endless debates about territory and protocol. Tonight's session is neutral ground, all houses attend. I can't miss it without raising suspicion. Elara felt a flutter of panic. You're leaving me here alone? You'll be safe. These catacombs are sealed by Ward's ancient magic. Nothing can enter without my blood to open the doors. He crossed back to her, and she felt something cold press into her palm. A key. This opens the inner chambers if you need to hide. Food, water, books if you. He stopped. If I could read them, she finished quietly. I'm sorry. I forget, don't. She closed her fingers around the key. Everyone apologizes for my blindness. You don't have to. I wasn't apologizing for that. I was apologizing for my thoughtlessness. His hand covered hers briefly, so cold it almost burned. There are journals in the inner chamber. My grandfather's. If you'd like, when I return, I could read them to you. The old stories, how my house began. Something in his voice made her throat tight. You're lonely. The silence stretched so long she thought he wouldn't answer. Yes, he said finally. I'm very lonely. Then she heard him walk away, heard the hidden door grind open, heard his footsteps fade into the labyrinth beyond, and Alara sat in the darkness, holding a key to a vampire's secrets, wondering how she'd gone from heir to corpse to confidant in less than a day. She traced the key's teeth with her fingers, memorizing the pattern. Outside, in the world above, her brother was celebrating her death. Down here, in the cold and the dark, she was beginning something new, something dangerous. She just had to survive long enough to see where it led. Chapter 3. The weight of secrets. Hours alone taught Alara exactly how silent a tomb could be. She explored the inner chambers using Lucian's key, trailing her fingers along walls that grew colder the deeper she went. The first room held what felt like a study, shelves of books, a desk with scattered papers, inkwells that had long since dried. The second was sparse, a low platform that might serve as a bed, though it held only a single thin blanket. No pillows, no comfort. Vampires didn't need comfort during death sleep, she supposed. The third chamber made her pause. It smelled different, not of dust and stone, but of something organic, living. Her questing fingers found wooden boxes stacked along one wall, and when she carefully opened one, the scent intensified. Herbs, dozens of varieties carefully preserved. She identified lavender by touch and smell, then rosemary, sage, something bitter. That might be wolfsbane. Why would a vampire need herbs? She was examining a bundle of dried flowers when she heard a sound so faint she almost missed it. Scraping, distant, coming from somewhere above. Alara froze, her heart stuttering. The scraping came again, deliberate and rhythmic. Someone was moving through the upper levels of the catacombs. Someone who shouldn't be there. Lucian had said the wards would keep intruders out, but that sound was definitely inside. She backed slowly toward the door, her hand finding the frame. Should she hide deeper? Or return to the main chamber, where at least she knew the layout? The scraping stopped. Footsteps now, light, careful, coming closer. Alara's fingers tightened on the doorframe. She had no weapon, no way to defend herself. If this was one of Seelan's men, if they'd somehow broken through Lucian's protections. I can hear your breathing. A woman's voice, cultured, amused. Alara didn't move. Come now, the voice continued. Lucian asked me to check on you. I'm not going to hurt a blind girl hiding in an herb pantry. Who are you? Serafini. House Corvinus, like our brooding host. Footsteps approached until Alara could feel the displacement of air. I'm what you might call Lucian's contemporary. We were turned within a decade of each other, which makes us practically siblings in vampire terms. Lucian said nothing could enter without his blood. Lucian forgets I'm keyed into these wards too. We've shared this sanctuary for centuries. Fabric rustled a dress from the sound of it. He sent word during the court session. Asked me to ensure you were settling in. Though I see you've already found his collection. Collection? The herbs. Lucian's little hobby. He studies remedies, mortal medicine, specifically. Has for decades. Rather unusual for a vampire. But then, he's always been peculiar. Serafini moved past her into the chamber. He can't use them himself, of course. We heal too quickly for medicine to matter. But he finds the science fascinating. Alara processed this, trying to reconcile the image of a deadly vampire carefully preserving medicinal herbs. Why are you really here? Direct. I like that. Serafini's voice held a smile. Lucian worries. He won't admit it, but bringing a mortal into our world, into his personal sanctuary, it's unprecedented. He wanted someone to ensure you hadn't panicked and done something foolish. Like what? Escape through sealed catacombs, or harm yourself. Mortals sometimes react poorly to extended darkness and isolation, especially those already traumatized. Serafini's tone shifted, becoming gentler. Your brother threw you from a tower. That's not a small thing to survive. Alara's throat tightened. She'd been so focused on the immediate danger, on vampire politics and her brother's treachery, that she hadn't let herself feel the betrayal. The moment Seelan's hands had closed around her throat, the terror of falling. I'm fine, she said. Liar. But Serafini said it kindly. Come, let's return to the main chamber. I brought wine, proper wine, not the swill from your estate's cellars. Alara let herself be guided back through the passages, Serafini's hand cool but steady on her elbow. In the main chamber, she heard the other woman settling glasses on the table, pouring liquid with practiced ease. Sit, Serafini commanded. Drink, and tell me what you think of our Lucian. I barely know him. You know he saved you. You know he's involving you in house politics. You know he's lonely enough to offer reading you bedtime stories from his grandfather's journals. Serafini laughed a sound like wind chimes. That's more than most people learn about him in decades. Alara accepted the wine glass, taking a careful sip. It was good, rich, and complex. He said you were turned together. What was he like then? Angry, brilliant, determined to prove the accords could work. Serafini's voice grew thoughtful. His mortal family was slaughtered in the last great war caught between vampire factions. He was turned by my sire as an act of mercy, not malice. We were both young, both furious at what we'd lost. The difference was that Lucian channeled that fury into creating something better. The accords, he didn't write them alone, but yes, he was instrumental. He believed vampires and mortals could coexist if we established clear boundaries. No unauthorized turning, no predation, mutual respect. Serafini paused. House Varen called him naive, weak. They've spent 200 years trying to prove him wrong. Alara set down her glass. And now my brother is helping them. Now your brother is a means to an end. If Varen can break the accords here, in Corvinus's own territory, it proves the system doesn't work. Other houses will follow suit. The peace Lucian built will collapse. The weight of responsibility settled over Alara's shoulders. She'd thought being named heir was burden enough. Now she was caught in a centuries-old ideological war. Why does Lucian care so much? She asked quietly. He's immortal, powerful. He could just leave, let the houses destroy each other. Because he remembers being mortal. He remembers what it's like to be powerless while gods or monsters play games with your life. Serafini's voice softened. And because under all that control and strategy, he still believes things can be better. That we can be better. Alara heard the affection in Serafini's tone, the old friendship. You care about him, like a brother. A frustrating, self-sacrificing, occasionally insufferable brother. Serafini stood. Which is why I'm telling you this. Lucian will protect you with everything he has. But he won't ask you to stay if you want to leave. If this becomes too much, the danger, the darkness, the weight of what we're fighting for, he'll find you a safe passage to another territory. A new identity. Freedom. Why are you telling me this? Because I suspect you'll want to stay. And I need you to understand what that means. Serafini moved toward the door. Lucian hasn't let anyone close in 50 years. The last person he trusted betrayed him to House Varen, nearly cost him his life. He's careful now, guarded. If you're going to be in his sanctuary, in his confidence, I need to know you won't break that trust. Alara stood, facing the direction of Serafini's voice. I won't betray him. Why not? You barely know him. Because he caught me when I was falling. Alara's voice was steady. Because he's given me shelter when I have nowhere else to go. Because he's fighting for something larger than himself. She paused. And because I understand loneliness too. Silence. Then Serafini laughed genuinely this time, warm and surprised. Oh, Lucian has no idea what he's gotten himself into. The door groaned open. I'll leave you to rest. He'll return before dawn. Try not to reorganize his herb collection. He's very particular about the arrangement. Serafini? Yes? Thank you. For checking on me. Thank Lucian. He's the one who asked. A pause. Though between us, I'm glad I did. You're not what I expected. What did you expect? Someone weaker. Someone more afraid. Footsteps receded down the passage. You'll do just fine, Alara Greymore. Just fine indeed. Then she was gone. And Alara was alone again, with the candles and the silence and the growing certainty that she'd stepped into something far more complicated than simple survival. She returned to the herb chamber, carefully touching the bundles Lucian had preserved. Imagining him here alone, studying mortal remedies he could never use, building a world where mortals and vampires might coexist, still trying to save people, even after centuries, she understood that impulse, the need to make something matter. When Lucian returned, she'd tell him she was staying, not because she had no choice, but because for the first time since her father's illness began, since Seelan's resentment turned to hatred, she felt like she might be exactly where she needed to be. Chapter 4. Threads of Blood and Truth. Lucian returned just as Alara was beginning to worry. She heard the wards shift, a sound like glass singing, then his footsteps. slower than usual, heavier. When he entered the main chamber, she smelled something sharp and metallic. Blood. You're hurt. She stood from the bench, orienting toward him. It's nothing. His voice was tight. The court session ran poorly. Serafini came. I know. I asked her to. Fabric rustled as he moved. Did she interrogate you thoroughly? She warned me not to betray you. Alara tilted her head. She also told me about the last person you trusted. Lucian went very still. Then, Serafini talks too much. She cares about you. She worries unnecessarily. He crossed the room, and Alara heard liquid pouring water. From the sound, the session confirmed my suspicions. House Varen is moving faster than expected. They've already claimed rights to 3 disputed territories, citing the accords as outdated bureaucracy. The other houses are fracturing. And you're bleeding because? Because I objected, loudly. Lord Varen took exception. A pause. We didn't fight that would violate neutral ground. But he made his position clear. Either I stop interfering in his expansion, or he'll consider House Corvinus an enemy rather than a rival. Alara moved toward him carefully, one hand extended until she found his arm. The fabric was wet, sticky. This needs tending. It's already healing. Not fast enough if you're still bleeding. She tugged him toward the chair. Sit. Where's your medical kit? Why would I need? He stopped. The herbs. Serafini mentioned your hobby. Alara's fingers found his shoulder, then traced down to the wound a long slash across his forearm. Deep. This will scar if you don't bind it properly during healing. Vampires don't scar. Everything scars if damaged deeply enough. She thought of the tower, of falling, of her brother's hands on her throat. Some wounds went deeper than flesh. Where do you keep bandages? For a moment she thought he'd refuse. Then, third shelf, left side, clean cloth. She found them by touch, along with a bottle that smelled of alcohol for cleaning. When she returned, Lucian had removed his coat. His shirt sleeve was torn, exposing the wound. This might sting, she warned. I'm immortal. That doesn't mean it won't hurt. She cleaned the wound carefully, feeling him tense beneath her fingers. The cut was precise, made by a blade, not claws. A knife? Silver blade. Ceremonial. Varen carries it as a reminder of the old ways. Lucian's voice was steady despite the pain. Before the accords, silver was used in vampire executions. He likes making statements. Alara wrapped the bandage with practiced efficiency. She'd tended her father during his illness, learned to manage by touch what others did by sight. You should have walked away. I don't walk away from bullies, even when walking away keeps you alive. Especially then. His hand caught hers, stopping her work. If I'd stayed silent, Varen would have interpreted it as submission. The other houses would see Corvinus as weak. The accords would be even more vulnerable. So you bled for principle. I've bled for worse reasons. He released her hand, let her finish the bandaging. When she tied off the cloth, he flexed his arm experimentally. Thank you. You're surprisingly competent at field medicine. My father was ill for 2 years before he named me heir. The physicians tried, but she trailed off. I learned by necessity. Is that why your brother hated you? Because you cared for your father while he drank and gambled and pretended everything was fine. Alara returned to the bench, suddenly tired. Seelan couldn't face weakness. Not in others. Not in himself. Watching our father decline was unbearable for him. So he avoided it. And I became the one father relied on, making you the logical heir, making me the usurper. In Seelan's eyes, she pulled her shawl tighter. He convinced himself I'd manipulated father, that my blindness garnered sympathy, made me appear helpless and worthy. He couldn't accept that father chose me because I was capable. Lucian was quiet for a long moment. For what it's worth, your father was right. The simple statement hit harder than elaborate praise. Alara's throat tightened. The court session, she said, changing the subject. Did you learn anything about Elena Corvath? She was there, sitting with the Varen delegation. His voice hardened. She's not just connected to House Varen, she's a sanctioned envoy. Which means your brother's relationship with her wasn't accidental. It was orchestrated. They've been using him from the start. Yes. And now that you're dead, Seelan has everything he wanted: power, legitimacy, and no inconvenient sister to challenge him. He'll formalize the land transfer within days. Alara clenched her fists. Then we stop him. How? You're legally dead. Any appearance would raise questions we can't answer without exposing my involvement. And House Corvinus can't act directly without proof of Varen's conspiracy. If we move too soon, then we get proof. She stood, facing him. You said Seelan will celebrate, that he'll brag. If Elena is his handler, she'll be there. And if she's there, she'll report back to Varen. We intercept that report. You're suggesting espionage. I'm suggesting we use the resources we have. Alara moved toward where she'd heard his voice. I know my brother's patterns. I know the estate. And I know how to move through it unseen. I've been doing it my whole life. Absolutely not. Lucian's response was immediate. It's too dangerous. More dangerous than sitting here while Varen consolidates power? Alara, I'm not asking permission. She stopped directly in front of him. You said this was a partnership. That my choice mattered. Well, I'm choosing to act. She heard him stand, felt his presence close, that unnatural coldness that marked him as something other. When he spoke, his voice was low, almost gentle. If something happens to you, then you'll have lost an informant. But you'll still have your mission. She softened her tone. I'm not being reckless, Lucian. I'm being practical. You need information that only I can obtain. And I need. She hesitated. I need to face what happened. To prove I'm more than just a blind girl thrown from a tower. His hand touched her shoulder, barely there, questioning. You've already proven that. To you, maybe. Not to myself. The silence stretched between them, heavy with unspoken concern. Finally, Lucian sighed. If we do this, we do it my way. I'll create a distraction, something to occupy the guards. You'll have a 30-minute window to reach Seelan's study and locate any correspondence with Elena or Varen. His grip tightened slightly. But the moment I sense danger, I'm pulling you out. Understood? Understood. And you'll wear this. She heard him cross to the table, heard something metallic clink. He pressed a cold object into her palm, a pendant on a chain. It's keyed to me. If you're in immediate danger, crush the stone. I'll know, and I'll come. Alara's fingers traced the pendant's smooth stone set in silver, warm despite Lucian's cold touch. This is important to you. It was my mother's. One of the few things I kept from my mortal life. His voice roughened. Don't make me regret lending it to you. She closed her hand around it, feeling the weight of trust. When do we start? Tomorrow night. Seelan is hosting a gathering. Serafini confirmed it through her sources. All his inner circle will attend. It's our best opportunity. He stepped back. For now, you should rest. I'll wake you at dusk. Lucian? Yes? Thank you. For believing I can do this. I'm not sure belief is the right word, but there was something almost warm in his tone. Let's call it reluctant confidence. Despite everything, Alara smiled. I'll take it. She heard him retreat to his inner chambers, heard the door close softly. Alone again, she fastened the pendant around her neck, feeling the stone rest against her collarbone. Tomorrow, she would return to the place that had almost been her grave. Tomorrow, she would prove that falling wasn't the same as breaking. And tomorrow, she would begin to repay the vampire who'd caught her mid-fall with more than just information. She would give him what he'd given her, a reason to believe that impossible things could still come true. Chapter 5. The gathering storm dust came with the scent of rain. Alara felt it in the air, the pressure change, the dampness seeping through stone. Perfect weather for what they planned. Rain would keep guests indoors, guards huddled under eaves, attention scattered. The distraction is set, Lucian said, helping her into a cloak. His fingers brushed her shoulders, adjusting the hood. At midnight, a fire will break out in the eastern stables. Nothing dangerous, controlled, theatrical. But it will draw everyone's focus. Everyone except Elena. She'll stay with Seelan. Which is why you'll enter through the servants' passage on the west side. The one behind the kitchens. Alara nodded. She knew that passage intimately, had used it countless times to avoid her brother's attention. And if I encounter someone? You're a maid. New. Nervous. You got turned around looking for the wine cellars. He pressed something into her hand, a ring. Wear this. It's spelled. Anyone who sees you will find you. Unremarkable. Forgettable. Their eyes will slide past you. She slipped the ring on, felt a strange tingling across her skin. Useful. Illegal, technically. Enchanting objects to manipulate mortal perception violates accord protocols. His tone was dry. But I've never been above bending rules when necessary. Hypocrite, pragmatist. She heard the smile in his voice. Ready? No, but she said, yes. The journey to the estate took longer than she expected. Lucian moved with preternatural silence, guiding her through the catacombs, up hidden stairs, through passages she'd never known existed. The rain started as they emerged into the night-cold drops that soaked through her cloak within minutes. The servant's entrance is ahead, Lucian murmured. 30 paces straight, then 5 to the left. The door will be unlocked. I arranged it earlier. How? Gold opens more doors than magic. He squeezed her hand once. Remember, 30 minutes. Seelan's study. Any letters, ledgers, or documents mentioning Varen or Elena. Take what you can carry, nothing more, and you'll be watching. Always. His voice lowered. I won't let anything happen to you. Then he was gone. She felt his absence like a dropped thread. Elara stood in the rain, counting heartbeats to steady herself, then moved forward. 30 paces, 5 left. Her fingers found the door handle, unlocked as promised. Inside, the estate was exactly as she remembered, the smell of beeswax and old wood, the slight echo of the stone floors, the draft that always swept through the western corridor. She navigated by memory and touch, keeping her footsteps light. Voices drifted from the great hall, laughter, the clinking of glasses. Seelan's party. She moved past quickly, heading for the north wing, where his study waited. The ring worked as Lucian promised. She passed 2 servants in the corridor, heard their footsteps, their quiet conversation, but neither challenged her. She was background, invisible. Seelan's study door was locked, but she'd expected that. She felt along the doorframe until she found what she needed, the loose stone where her father used to hide the spare key. Some habits died hard. The study smelled of tobacco and brandy. Elara closed the door softly behind her, then moved to the desk. Her fingers found papers scattered across the surface, bills of sale, correspondence with merchants, nothing useful. She tried the drawers, locked. She traced the desk's edge, searching for the hidden compartment her father had installed years ago. There, a slight groove. She pressed, and something clicked. A drawer slid open, letters, dozens of them. She ran her fingers across the seals, feeling for the emblem she needed. Most bore the Greymore seal. Some had unfamiliar marks. Then there, a raised pattern that felt like thorns, or claws. House, Varen. Elara tucked the letter inside her cloak and kept searching. Her fingers found a ledger, leather-bound, heavy. She opened it, wishing desperately that she could read the entries. But she could feel the texture of fresh ink on recent pages. This was current, important. She took it. More letters. One sealed with wax that felt different, smoother, almost warm to the touch. Spelled, perhaps. She took that too. Footsteps in the corridor. Elara froze, her heart hammering. The footsteps grew closer, accompanied by voices. Elena's cultured tones. Should check on the documents before the signing tomorrow. Seelan's response. They're secure. No one knows about the study's compartment. Your sister knew. My sister is dead. Seelan's voice was flat. And even if she weren't, she couldn't read the agreements. The footsteps stopped outside the door. Elara's hand went to the pendant at her throat. Should she crush it? Call Lucian? But if he came, it would expose his involvement. Blow everything they'd worked for. She moved silently behind the door, pressing herself against the wall. The ring might make her forgettable, but if they looked directly at her, the door handle turned. Light spilled in from the corridor. Elara held her breath, feeling sweat bead on her forehead despite the cold. Seelan entered, Elena close behind. Neither looked toward the shadows where Elara stood. The Varen documents? Elena prompted. Seelan moved to the desk, checking the drawers. He didn't notice the open secret compartment, or if he did, he assumed he'd left it that way. All here. Tomorrow, we finalize the transfer, and House Varen guarantees their support for my claim to the northern estates as well, and in exchange, they get their foothold in Corvinus territory, a launching point for their expansion. Seelan poured himself brandy from the decanter. Let the vampires fight their ancient wars. I'll be rich. You'll be a puppet. Elena's voice was cold, but a useful one. Seelan turned to her, and Elara heard the shift in his tone, uncertainty creeping in. You said this was a partnership. It is. Just not an equal one. Elena moved closer to him. Don't worry, my lord. Serve House Varen well, and you'll be rewarded. Disappoint us. She trailed off. Well, let's not think about that. The threat hung in the air. Seelan said nothing. Come, Elena said. Your guests are asking for you. We can review the final terms later. They left, closing the door behind them. Elara waited in the darkness, counting to 100 before she dared move. Her hands shook as she secured the documents in her cloak. Seelan was in deeper than she'd thought, not just an ambitious fool, but a man who'd sold himself to something he didn't understand. She slipped out of the study, retracing her steps through the corridor. The party noise covered her movement. She was almost to the servants' entrance when "You there?" a guard's voice. Elara turned slowly, keeping her head down. "What are you doing in this wing? The kitchens are that way." The ring should make her forgettable, but he'd spoken directly to her. "If she ran, I got lost, sir." She made her voice young, frightened. "First day. The head cook sent me for wine, but wine cellars are downstairs." The guard sounded bored. "Go on, and next time pay attention." "Yes, sir." "Sorry, sir." She hurried away, feeling his eyes on her back. The ring had worked barely. Any more scrutiny and she reached the door, slipped outside into the rain. 30 paces. She counted carefully, then stopped. Lucian materialized from the shadows. Success? Letters, a ledger, and information. She was breathless, adrenaline still flooding her system. "They're signing tomorrow, finalizing everything. Then we move tonight." He took her arm, guiding her back toward the catacombs. "Whatever you found, it's our evidence. Our chance to stop this before it's irreversible." They moved quickly through the rain, through the hidden passages. When they finally reached the safety of the catacombs, Elara sagged against the wall, the weight of what she'd done crashing over her. "I was in the study when they entered," she said quietly. "Seelan and Elena. I almost, but you didn't." Lucian's hands found her shoulders, steadying her. "You succeeded. You got what we needed." "I heard them talking." Elena threatened him. "He's terrified of House Varen." "Good. Fear makes people sloppy." Lucian took the documents from her cloak. "Let me see what you found." She heard paper rustling, heard his sharp intake of breath. "Elara," he said slowly, "this isn't just a land transfer." "What is it?" "A feeding license. Seelan is granting House Varen unrestricted access to his territory's mortal population. No consent requirements. No accord oversight." His voice went deadly cold. "He's selling his people." The horror of it settled over her. Not just land. Not just political maneuvering. Her brother was condemning hundreds to become prey. "We have to stop the signing," she whispered. "We will." Lucian's hand found hers in the darkness. "Tomorrow, we take this to the Accord Council. Force a hearing. Expose Varen's conspiracy and your brother's betrayal." "Will they listen?" "They'll have to. This violates every protection we've built." He squeezed her hand. "You did well tonight. Exceptionally well." Elara leaned against him, allowing herself one moment of relief. One moment to feel the victory. Tomorrow, they'd face the storm. Tonight, she'd proven she was more than her brother's victim. She was a survivor, a fighter. And she wasn't finished yet. Chapter 6. The Price of Truth. Accord Council met in a place that existed between worlds. Lucian explained it as they prepared. Neutral ground. Not quite mortal. Not quite ours. A pocket dimension held in place by ancient magic. All 5 great houses have equal access, equal voice. And they'll believe us? If the evidence is compelling enough. He fastened his formal coat. She heard the whisper of expensive fabric. "And what you retrieved is very compelling indeed." Elara wore a dress Serafini had provided, dark silk that felt like water against her skin. Too fine for a dead woman. But Lucian insisted she needed to present as more than a refugee. She was a witness. Testimony with a face. "The council will ask difficult questions," Lucian warned as they entered the passage to the meeting place. "About how you survived. About my involvement. Are you prepared? To tell the truth? To tell the parts of truth that serve us?" His hand found her elbow, guiding her forward. She felt the air change, growing thicker, charged with power. "Remember, you're here by your own choice. I offered you sanctuary after your brother's attempt on your life. Everything else follows naturally." The chamber they entered hummed with tension. Elara felt it immediately, the weight of ancient gazes, the press of power from multiple sources. 5 distinct presences, each cold in its own way. Lord Lucian Corvinus, a voice like granite grinding. "You've called an emergency session. This had better warrant the interruption." Elder Thane. Lucian's voice was respectful but firm. "I bring evidence of accord violations. Conspiracy between a mortal lord and House Varen to circumvent feeding restrictions and territorial law." Murmurs rippled through the chamber. Another voice, female, sharp as crystal. "And the mortal with you?" Elara Greymore. "Witness and victim. Her testimony is relevant. She's the girl who died." A third voice, smooth as oil. "Varen." Elara guessed. I attended the funeral myself. Tragic accident. It was no accident. Alara spoke before Lucian could respond. My brother threw me from the Greymore Tower. Lord Lucian saved me. Silence. Then Varen again, amused. Convenient. A blind girl who supposedly fell to her death, now resurrected to make accusations against her own brother. This seems rather theatrical, Lucian. The evidence speaks for itself. Lucian moved forward. She heard paper sliding across stone. A feeding license. Signed by Seelan Greymore, witnessed by Elena Corvath of House Varen's tributary bloodlines. It grants unrestricted feeding rights across the Greymore territories. No consent requirements. No accord. Oversight. A direct violation of Section 3, Article 7. The silence now was different, crackling, dangerous. Where did you obtain this? The granite voice Thane demanded. I retrieved it, Alara said. From my brother's study. Last night. You broke into a mortal estate to steal private documents? Varen's voice dripped false concern. Elder Thane, surely you see the irregularity here. Lord Lucian has manipulated a traumatized mortal into espionage, then manufactured evidence to support his vendetta against my house. The seal on that license is yours, Lucian said coldly. Are you claiming it's forgery? I'm claiming context matters. Perhaps Lord Greymore and my house were discussing hypothetical arrangements. Perhaps this document was never meant to be enacted. The signing is scheduled for today, Alara interrupted. I heard Elena Corvath confirm it. They plan to finalize everything this afternoon. You heard. Varen's tone turned mocking. A blind girl overheard a conversation she conveniently can't verify. Forgive me if I find that insufficient. Rage flared in Alar's chest. I may be blind, Lord Varen, but I'm not deaf or stupid. Elena's voice is distinctive. She threatened my brother, told him he'd be rewarded for serving House Varen well, and punished if he disappointed you. Those aren't the words of hypothetical negotiation. Elder Thane, a new voice, female and measured. I propose we investigate. Send a neutral party to observe the Greymore estate. If a signing occurs as Lady Alara describes, we have our proof. Lady Morgana makes sense. Another voicemail, weary. We can't ignore potential accord violations based on Varen's protests. I protest the entire proceeding, Varen snapped. Lucian Corvinus has a documented history of interfering in my house's legitimate business. He's using this girl to manufacture a crisis. Then you won't mind observers at the Greymore estate today? Lucian's voice was silk over steel. If the signing doesn't occur, I'll formally apologize to the council, and to your house. But if it does, if Elena Corvath appears too, witness Seelan Greymore's signature. On an illegal feeding license House Varen stands in violation. The silence stretched. Alara could feel Varen's fury like heat across the chamber. Very well, Thane said finally. Lady Morgana, Lord Cassius, you will observe the Greymore estate. If the signing occurs, we reconvene immediately. If not, the unspoken threat hung heavy. Lucian, you will face censure for wasting the council's time. Understood, Elder. And the girl? Varen pressed. She remains with Lucian? Under his influence? I'm not under anyone's influence, Alara said sharply. I'm here because my brother tried to murder me and sell my people to your house like cattle. If that doesn't warrant council attention, then your accords are worthless. Shocked. Silence. Then Thane laughed, a sound like boulders tumbling. The mortal has teeth. I like that. His voice sobered. Lady Alara may remain under House Corvinus protection until this matter is resolved. If she's lying, we'll know soon enough. If she's truthful, another pause. Then House Varen has much to answer for. This isn't over, Varen said quietly. No, Lucian agreed. It isn't. The session dissolved. Alara felt the presences withdraw like tides pulling back. Only Lucian remained beside her, his hand finding her arm. Well done, he murmured. You just challenged a vampire lord in front of the Accord Council. Was I not supposed to? On the contrary. It was perfect. He guided her toward the exit. Varen expected you to be meek, broken. Instead, you reminded them that mortal voices matter, that the Accords exist to protect people like you. They walked in silence for a moment. Then, what happens if the signing doesn't occur? If Varen warns Seelan off, then we've tipped our hand and gained nothing. Lucian's voice was grim. Varen will move more carefully. We'll have lost our advantage. And if it does occur, then we've won this battle. But the war, he trailed off. The war will only intensify. They emerged back into the catacombs. Elara felt exhausted suddenly, the adrenaline draining away, leaving her hollow. How long until we know? She asked. Hours. The signing was scheduled for mid-afternoon. Morgana and Cassius will report by evening, and until then, we wait. Lucian led her to the main chamber, settling her on the bench. You should rest. You've been awake since yesterday. But Elara couldn't rest. Her mind raced with possibilities, with fears. If they succeeded, her brother would face justice. If they failed Lucian, her voice was small. When this is over, when the council makes its judgment, what happens to me? He was quiet for a long moment. What do you want to happen? I don't know. She twisted her hands in her lap. I can't go back to my old life. I'm legally dead. Even if we expose Seelan, the estate, the inheritance, it's all gone. You could start over. New identity, new territory. I'd help you. And never see you again? The words escaped before she could stop them. Silence fell like snow. Elara, I'm sorry. That was inappropriate. You've already done so much, and I stop. His hand covered hers, cold and steady. You have nothing to apologize for. I just meant, she faltered. These past days, working with you, feeling like I matter, like what I do makes a difference. I haven't felt that way since before my father got sick. And the thought of losing it, of being sent away to live some quiet false life, then don't. Lucian's voice was rough. Stay. Help me rebuild what your brother tried to destroy. Be my eyes in the mortal world. My conscience when I get too caught up in vampire politics to remember what we're fighting for. You mean that? I don't say things I don't mean. He squeezed her hand. Besides, Serafini would never forgive me if I let you go. She's already planning to teach you self-defense. Despite everything, Elara smiled. I'd like that. Then it's settled. When this is over, when we've dealt with Varen and your brother, you stay. As my partner, in whatever capacity you choose. Partner. The word resonated through her chest. Warm and terrifying and right. Thank you, she whispered. Thank me when we've survived the next few hours. But his voice held something soft, something almost tender. Rest now. I'll wake you when we have word. Elara lay back on the bench, Lucian's coat draped over her as a blanket. She heard him settle nearby, heard the rustle of papers as he worked, and for the first time since her brother's hands closed around her throat, she felt something close to peace. Whatever came next, she wouldn't face it alone. Chapter 7. Blood and Ashes. The attack came at sunset. Elara woke to the sound of stone exploding. She jolted upright, disoriented, as Lucian's voice cut through the chaos. Stay down. What's happening? Varen. His voice was deadly calm despite the destruction around them. He's breaching the wards. Elara. Listen to me. Take the inner passage. Third door on the left leads to an exit tunnel. It surfaces a mile north in the old cemetery. I'm not leaving you. You have to. His hands gripped her shoulders, urgent. If they take you, they'll use you against me. Against the council's investigation. You're the witness, Elara. You have to survive. Another explosion. Closer. She heard stone crumbling. Heard voices, multiple vampires. Their presence like ice water down her spine. Find Serafini, Lucian continued. The pendant, use it to track her. She'll protect you until Lord Lucian. Varen's voice, smooth and terrible, echoed through the catacombs. Come out. Let's discuss this like civilized beings. Lucian pushed something into Elara's hands, a blade. Silver. If anyone but me or Serafini tries to touch you, aim for the heart. Don't hesitate. Lucian, go. Now. She heard him move away, heard his footsteps, deliberate and measured as he walked toward the breach. Buying her time, Elara ran. Her hands found the wall, traced it desperately until she counted 3 doors. Left. She yanked it open, plunged into darkness that felt even deeper than before. The tunnel slopped downward, then up. Her feet splashed through standing water. She counted steps, trying to remember Lucian's directions. Behind her, she heard fighting, the crash of bodies, the sound of something inhuman snarling. Then Lucian's voice strained. The council will hear of this, Varen. Attacking another house's sanctuary. The council will hear what I tell them. Varen's response was cold. That you kidnapped a mortal girl, coerced her into false testimony. That when I came to investigate, you resisted. You're really willing to risk open war? I'm willing to eliminate obstacles. A pause. Where is she, Lucian? Silence. Then the sound of impact, Lucian being thrown against stone. Elara's heart seized, but she kept moving. He'd told her to run, to survive. She had to trust him. The tunnel seemed endless. Her lungs burned. The silver blade clutched in her hand felt both too heavy and too light. What could she possibly do against vampires? Light ahead. Not the warm glow of candles, but cold moonlight filtering through a grate. The exit. Elara pushed against it, felt it resist, then give. She emerged into night air, into the smell of wet earth and old graves, the cemetery. She'd made it. Now she just had to footsteps. Fast. Inhuman. Found her. Elara spun, raising the blade. A vampire. She couldn't see him, but she felt his presence like a wall of ice. He laughed. Put that down before you hurt yourself, little mortal. Stay back. Her voice shook, but her grip on the blade didn't. Lord Varen wants you alive. But he didn't specify undamaged. The vampire moved closer. Drop the knife, and I'll make this quick. Elara's thumb found the pendant at her throat. Lucian had said to crush it if she was in danger. But if she called him now, while he was fighting Varen, the vampire lunged. Instinct drove her sideways. His hand caught her arm, wrenching, and the blade clattered away. She screamed, struggling, as cold fingers closed around her throat. Should have run faster. The vampire hissed, then a sound like wind rushing. The pressure on her throat vanished. Elara stumbled back, gasping, and heard bodies colliding, fighting. A female voice. Furious. Touch her again and I'll scatter your ashes across 3 territories. Serafini, Lady Serafini. The vampire's voice was wary now. This doesn't concern House Corvinus nobility. She's under our protection. That makes it very much my concern. Metal sang, a blade being drawn. You have 3 seconds to leave before I make this personal. The vampire fled. Elara heard his footsteps retreating at impossible speed. Serafini's hands found her shoulders. Are you hurt? No, shaken. But Elara gripped Serafini's arms. Lucian, Varen attacked the sanctuary. He told me to run. But I know. I felt the wards breaking. Serafini's voice was grim. We need to get you somewhere safe. Then I'm going back for him. I'm coming with you. Absolutely not, he's outnumbered. You said yourself that Varen brought multiple vampires. Elara's voice hardened. I won't hide while he fights alone. You're mortal. You'll be a liability. Or I'll be an advantage. Elara's mind raced. Varen wants me alive. You said the council needs my testimony. If I go back, he'll focus on capturing me, not killing Lucian. It divides his attention. Serafini was silent for a long moment. Then, that's the stupidest, bravest thing I've heard in decades. You really are perfect for him. What? Never mind. Come on. Serafini grabbed her hand. If we're doing this, we do it smart. I'll get you close. But you stay behind me. The moment things go wrong, I run. I know. Elara squeezed her hand. Thank you. They moved through the cemetery. Serafini navigating the tombstones with preternatural grace while pulling Elara along. The entrance to the catacombs loomed ahead. She could smell the disturbed earth, the ancient stone, 3 of Varen's people inside, Serafini murmured, plus Varen himself. And Lucian is. She stopped. He's hurt. I can smell his blood. Elara's chest constricted. Can you take them? In a fair fight? Easily. But Varen doesn't fight fair. Serafini drew her blade. Stay close. When I engage, you find Lucian. Get him out if you can. They descended into the catacombs. The destruction was worse than Elara had imagined. She felt it in the changed acoustics, in the rubble beneath her feet. The wards were completely shattered, voices ahead. Varen. And when the council asks, I'll tell them you died defending your illegal captive. Tragic. Almost noble. You won't get away with this. Lucian's voice was strained, pained. Morgana and Cassius witnessed the signing. They have proof. They have a document that will disappear, along with the mortal girl who corroborated it. And you? Varen's footsteps echoed. Any last words? Yes. Serafini's voice rang out like a bell. Get away from my brother. Chaos erupted. Elara heard steel clashing, heard bodies moving at impossible speeds. Serafini had launched herself at Varen's forces. The chamber filled with the sounds of violence, hissing, snarling, the wet sound of blades finding flesh. Elara? Lucian's voice weak. You were supposed to not leave you to die alone? Yes, well, I'm terrible at following orders. She moved toward his voice, hands extended. Found him slumped against the wall, his coat soaked with blood. How bad? Bad enough. His hand caught hers. Silver blade. It's slowing the healing. Silver. Like the knife he'd given her which she'd dropped in the cemetery. Elara's mind raced. The wound. Where? Shoulder. Chest. Doesn't matter, it matters if the blade left fragments. She remembered her father's physicians extracting arrowheads, extracting anything that prevented healing. Let me feel. Her fingers found the wound in his shoulder, deep, ragged. And there, lodged in torn flesh, piece of the blade. She whispered. It broke off. That's why you're not healing. Can't reach it, Lucian admitted. Tried. Lost too much blood. Behind them, Serafini fought like fury incarnate. But she was outnumbered, and even Alara could hear her tiring. This is going to hurt, Alara warned. Everything hurts. She dug her fingers into the wound, felt Lucian tense beneath her hands. The silver fragment was small, embedded deep. She had to there. She pinched it between two fingers, pulled steadily. Despite Lucian's sharp intake of breath, the fragment came free. Got it. She threw it aside. Felt Lucian's body shudder as his vampire healing kicked in properly. Within seconds, his breathing steadied. Thank you, he said roughly. Now we need to help Serafini. I know. He stood, pulling her with him. Stay behind me. They moved together into the fight. Alara heard Lucian engage one of Varen's vampires, heard the distinctive sound of his fighting style, precise, controlled, lethal. Beside them, Serafini laughed wildly as she drove another attacker back. Is that all you've got, Varen? She called. I expected better from a great house. You want better? Varen's voice was ice. Fine. Alara felt it before she understood it, a pressure building in the air, a gathering of power. Ancient magic. Dark and terrible. Lucian. Serafini's voice was urgent. He's the explosion of power threw everyone back. Alara hit the wall hard, stars bursting behind her sightless eyes. She heard Serafini cry out, heard Lucian's snarl of rage, then Varen's hand closed around her throat, lifting her off the ground. Enough games, he hissed. You're coming with me, little witness. And if Lucian wants you back, she heard his smile. He can beg. Alara's hand found the pendant still hanging at her throat. She crushed the stone. Power exploded outward, not from her, but from Lucian. The pendant was a beacon, a bond, and she'd just activated it. Varen dropped her, stumbling back. What did you? Lucian was on him in an instant, and this time there was nothing controlled about it. This was rage, ancient and terrible. You don't touch her, Lucian snarled. Ever. And in that moment, Alara understood. This wasn't about politics anymore. It was personal. Chapter 8. The reckoning fight was brutal and swift. Alara heard it, more than understood it, the vicious sounds of vampires fighting without restraint, without the careful politeness of council chambers. This was primal, ancient, two predators locked in combat. While the world held its breath, Varen's remaining forces fled. Alara heard their footsteps scattering, heard Serafini let them go. Smart. The real battle was between Lucian and Varen, and interference now would only complicate things. Serafini, Alara whispered, crawling toward where she'd heard the other woman fall. Her hands found fabric, then a shoulder. Are you alive? Mostly. Serafini coughed. That bastard's death magic packed more punch than expected. I'll heal. But she gripped Alara's arm. You need to get out of here. If Lucian loses, he won't. You don't know that. But Alara did. She couldn't see the fight, but she could hear it, could hear the deadly precision in Lucian's movements. The way Varen's attacks grew more desperate. Lucian wasn't just fighting. He was winning. You bonded the pendant to yourself, Serafini said, suddenly, realization dawning in her voice. When you crushed it, you didn't just call him. She stopped. Do you have any idea what that means? That he knew I was in danger? That you created a blood resonance? Even temporary, even accidental. Serafini's grip tightened. Alara, that kind of bond requires consent. Deep consent. How did you? I don't know what you're talking about. The pendant was his mother's. Family heirlooms carry essence, memory. When you crushed it while wearing his blood protection and calling for him, Serafini laughed shakily. You basically declared yourself his. Heat flooded Alara's face. That's not. I didn't mean. Doesn't matter what you meant. Matters what you did. Serafini's voice held something almost like wonder. And judging by the way he's currently dismantling a great house lord, I'd say the feeling is mutual. The sounds of fighting intensified. Then a sharp crack, followed by Varen's scream. Yield. Lucian's voice was cold as winter. Or I end this permanently. You wouldn't dare. Varen's words were pained, breathless. Kill me, and every house will turn against Corvinus. The council will rule it justified defense of my sanctuary and my house members. Another crack bone breaking. You attacked first. You brought death magic into a residential warren. You threatened a mortal under my protection. His voice dropped lower, more dangerous. You made this personal, Varen. Did you really think I'd let that stand? Silence. Then, Varen, quieter. What do you want? Confession. Public. Before the council. Lucian's footsteps circled his opponent. You orchestrated the conspiracy with Seelan Greymore. You planned to violate the accords. You attacked House Corvinus to silence witnesses. You have no proof. I have Morgana and Cassius's testimony about the signing. I have the documents Alara retrieved. And now I have you, bleeding on my floor, your forces scattered. A pause. I don't need more proof. I need your surrender. And if I refuse? Then I explained to the council why I had to execute you in self-defense. Your house falls to your second. Who is, let me recall, your nephew? The one who's been quietly arguing for accord reform. Lucian's tone turned almost pleasant. I suspect young Lord Adrian would be much more amenable to peaceful coexistence. Varen said nothing. Alara could practically feel his fury, his calculation. Tick-tock, Lucian said softly. My patience has limits. Fine. The word was poison. I confess. Public testimony. But this isn't over, Corvinus. No, Lucian agreed. It isn't. You'll spend the next century under council scrutiny. Every move watched. Every treaty questioned. Your house's reputation shattered. His voice hardened. You wanted to prove the accords were weak? Congratulations. You've proven they have teeth. Footsteps approached. Lucian's hand found Alara's shoulder, gentle despite everything. Are you hurt? No, Serafini needs help though. I'm fine, Serafini protested. But Lucian was already moving, checking her injuries with practiced efficiency. Broken ribs, concussion, death magic poisoning. His voice was clinical. You'll need 3 days of rest minimum. 3 hours, Serafini countered. We need to get to the council before Varen's people spin this. I'll handle the council. You rest. No room for argument. Alara, help me get her to the inner chambers. Together, they moved Serafini deeper into the catacombs, to rooms that had somehow survived Varen's assault. Lucian settled her onto the low platform that served as his bed, then turned back to Alara. I need to secure Varen, bind him properly. Can you stay with Serafini? Of course. His hand lingered on her face, thumb brushing her cheek. You crushed the pendant. You were dying. I was managing. You were outnumbered and silver poisoned. Alara's voice was firm. I made a choice that created a resonance bond. His voice was unreadable. Serafini told you? She mentioned it. Alara swallowed. I didn't know. I'm sorry if I don't apologize. His forehead touched hers briefly cool skin, careful pressure. You saved my life. Again, I should be thanking you. Then we're even. Not even close. He pulled back. Rest. Both of you. I'll return when Varen is secured, and I've sent word to the council. He left. And Alara sank onto the floor beside Serafini's platform. Suddenly exhausted. You know, Serafini said, after a moment. Her voice drowsy. In all the centuries I've known Lucian, I've never seen him lose control like that. Not since she stopped. Since what? Since he was turned. Since he lost his family. Serafini shifted, wincing. He's spent 200 years being careful, controlled, never letting anyone close enough to matter. And then you fell into his arms literally, and suddenly he's ripping apart a great house lord because someone threatened you. He was defending the accords. His house. It was absolutely about you. Serafini laughed softly. The accords were the excuse. You were the reason. There's a difference. Alara's chest felt too tight. I don't know what to do with that. What do you want to do with it? The question hung in the darkness. What did she want? A week ago, she'd been focused on inheritance, on proving herself capable despite her blindness. Now she was legally dead, hiding in vampire catacombs, caught between ancient houses and older laws, and somehow, impossibly, she was happier than she'd been in years. I want to stay, she said quietly. I want to help him rebuild whatever my brother tried to destroy. She hesitated. I want to understand what this bond means, what we could be to each other. Dangerous territory. Everything about this situation is dangerous. True, Serafini's breathing was evening out, sleep, pulling her under. But you're braver than you look, Alara Greymore. And Lucian needs that. Needs someone who'll charge back into burning buildings for him. Collapsing catacombs, technically. Same principle. Serafini yawned. Don't let him push you away. He'll try guilt, duty, all the usual excuses. But underneath, he's just terrified of losing someone again. Her voice faded. Make him believe you're not going anywhere. She drifted off, leaving Alara alone with her thoughts. Hours passed. Alara dozed fitfully, waking at every sound. Finally, she heard footsteps measured, familiar. Lucian. How is she? His voice was soft. Sleeping. Healing. Alara stood. Varen? Secured. Bound with spelled chains. I've sent word to the council they're convening an emergency tribunal at dawn. He moved closer. It's over. The conspiracy. The threat. You're safe now. And you? He paused. I'm tired, Alara. 2 centuries of fighting, of trying to hold the Accords together, and it never ends. There's always another Varen, another crisis. She found his hand in the darkness, laced their fingers together. His skin was cold, as always, but somehow comforting. Then don't fight alone, she said. Let me help. Let Serafini help. Let the people who care about you share the burden. You barely know me. I know you saved me. I know you fight for something larger than yourself. I know you study mortal medicine even though you can never use it, because you still care about healing. Her grip tightened. I know you're lonely, and scared of letting anyone close, and so desperately tired of being strong alone. Silence. Then, the bond, the resonance. Do you understand what it means? Serafini tried to explain. It means I can feel you. Your fear, your pain, he stopped. It fades usually. Temporary connections break when the crisis passes. But sometimes, with consent, it can become permanent. A true bond. Alara's heart hammered. And if I wanted that? If I wanted, don't. His voice was rough. Don't choose this because you're grateful, or because you feel obligated. I'm offering you freedom, Alara. A new life, far from vampire politics and ancient wars. You don't have to, she kissed him. Chapter 9. Between heartbeats for a moment, Lucian went completely still. Then his hands came up to frame her face careful, trembling slightly, and he kissed her back. Soft at first, testing, as if afraid she might break or disappear. His lips were cool against hers, but not cold, not lifeless, just different. When they finally broke apart, both breathless in their own ways, Alara could feel his forehead resting against hers. That was, his voice was shaken. Alara, not gratitude, she said firmly. Not obligation. Choice. My choice. You don't understand what you're choosing. Then explain it to me. She didn't let go of him. No more protecting me from information. No more deciding what I can handle. Tell me the truth, Lucian. All of it. He pulled back slightly, and she heard him move to sit on the floor, his back against the wall. After a moment, she settled beside him, their shoulders touching. The bond, he began slowly, starts as protection. A way for vampires to track and defend those under their care. But with prolonged contact, with emotional investment, it can deepen, become permanent. He paused. If that happens, if we let it, you'll always feel me. My presence, my emotions. And I'll feel you. Distance won't matter. Time won't break it. Like marriage, more binding than marriage. Marriage can be dissolved. This, his hand found hers again. This is forever. Or as close to forever as your mortal life allows. The weight of it settled between them. Alara processed carefully, turning it over in her mind. And after? She asked quietly. After my mortal life ends? Silence. Then, I've thought about that. More than I should. His thumb traced circles on her palm. I could offer you immortality, turning, but it's a choice that can't be unmade. You'd lose the sun, lose the taste of food, lose everything human about yourself. I won't make that offer lightly. But you'd make it? Eventually? If you wanted it. If you were certain. If he stopped. Alara, I've lived to centuries. I've seen mortals turned out of passion, out of desperation, out of fear of loss. And I've seen how many of them come to resent what they've become. The isolation, the hunger, the endless years. His voice dropped. I won't do that to you unless I'm absolutely certain it's what you want. Not what you think I want. Not what circumstance demands, but what you, in the deepest part of yourself, truly desire. She leaned against his shoulder, feeling the absence of heartbeat, the stillness that defined him. What if I don't know yet? What if I need time? Then we take time. His arm came around her, tentative. The bond doesn't require immortality. It works with mortal lifespans too. Shorter, yes. But he paused. I'd rather have you for a human lifetime than lose you to a turning you'd regret. You'd watch me age, die. Yes. Simple, honest, devastating. That doesn't scare you? It terrifies me. His voice was raw. But forcing you into immortality because I'm afraid of loss? That would be worse. That would be making you into something for my benefit, not yours. And he pulled her closer. I care about you too much for that. Alara's throat tightened. She'd never expected this careful consideration, this respect for her autonomy even in the face of his own fears. Her brother had tried to control her through violence. Lucian was offering her power over her own fate, even when it hurt him. I want the bond, she said finally. The permanent one. I want to know you're there. That I'm not, she swallowed. That I'm not alone anymore. You won't be. His lips brushed her temple. Even after I face the council. Even after the political storms settle. You'll have me, for as long as you want me. What about what you want? I want, his voice caught. I want what I haven't let myself want in 50 years. Someone to come home to. Someone who sees past the titles and the power to the person underneath. Someone who charges into collapsing catacombs to save me, even when they should run. He laughed softly, painfully. I want you, Alara, foolish as it is, dangerous as it is. I want you. She turned in his arms, her hands finding his face, tracing the angles she couldn't see, sharp cheekbones, strong jaw, the curve of his lips. Then have me. Bond partnership, whatever this becomes. I choose you too. It requires blood. His words were careful. A shared exchange. Not turning, not enough for that, but enough to seal the bond permanently. It's intimate, and there's no undoing it. I understand. Alara, I understand, she repeated firmly. And I'm certain. Are you? He was quiet for so long she thought he might refuse. Then, yes, more than I've been certain of anything in decades. Then show me how. He guided her hand to his wrist. Here first. I'll make a small cut, you'll drink just a few drops. Enough to carry my essence. Then he paused. Then I'll take from you. Your throat, ideally. The closest point to your heart. It won't hurt. I'll make sure it doesn't hurt. I trust you. You shouldn't, but his voice held a smile. I'm a vampire propositioning a blind mortal in a catacomb. This is objectively insane. Good thing I've always been a little mad. She squeezed his hand. Do it. Before I lose my nerve. She heard the soft sound of his fang piercing his own skin, then his wrist was at her lips. Drink. Just a little. The taste was strange, metallic but not unpleasant, carrying something deeper. Power, maybe, or memory. Alara took what he offered, feeling warmth spread through her chest. Good, Lucian murmured. Now may I? Yes. His hand cradled the back of her head, tilting it gently. His breath ghosted across her throat, cool and careful. Then pressure. A sharp sting that faded almost immediately into something else. Something that made her gasp. I have you, he whispered against her skin. I have you. The world shifted. Suddenly she could feel him, not just his physical presence, but his emotions. Relief, fierce and overwhelming. Fear, carefully controlled. And underneath it all, something vast and aching and tender. Love. He loved her. The realization should have terrified her. Instead, it felt like coming home. When he pulled back, his thumb wiped gently at her throat. It's done. The bond is sealed. I can feel you, she whispered. And I can feel you. Your courage. Your determination. His voice roughened. Your fear that I'll regret this. Will you? Never. He pulled her close and she could feel the truth of it through the bond. Though I may regret not doing this somewhere more romantic than a war-torn catacomb, she laughed, surprising herself. I don't know. There's something poetic about it. Building something beautiful in the ruins. You would find poetry in destruction. I find poetry in survival. She rested her head against his chest, listening to the silence where a heartbeat should be. In falling and being caught. In bonds forged in darkness. They sat like that for a long time, learning the new sensation of the bond. Alara could feel Lucian's exhaustion now, the toll the fight had taken. But underneath it, steady and strong, was contentment. Peace. The council meets at dawn, he said finally. I should prepare. Varen's testimony, the evidence, the formal charges. Will they punish House Corvinus? For my involvement? They'll try to question it. But with Varen's confession and the documents, he shifted. We'll weather it. Together, together, she echoed. He helped her stand, steadying her. You should rest. Actual rest, not vigil in a cold catacomb. There's a chamber with proper bedding Serafini's usually, but she's claimed mine for her recovery. Where will you sleep? I won't. Not until after the tribunal. He guided her through passages she was learning by feel. But I'll stay near. The bond makes it difficult to be far from you right now. The newness of it, that doesn't sound like a burden. It's not. His hand tightened on hers. It's a gift. One I never thought I'd receive again. He settled her in a room that smelled of lavender and old books. Soft blankets, a pillow that cradled her head. Luxury after days of stone benches. Sleep, Lucian said softly. When you wake, I'll tell you everything that happened at the tribunal. Every detail. Promise? Promise. He pressed a kiss to her forehead. Dream well, Alara. She heard him leave, but through the bond, she could still feel him. His presence like a distant star, constant and sure, for the first time since her brother threw her from the tower. Alara slept without nightmares. She dreamed instead of futures not yet written, of choices still to be made, of a vampire who'd caught her mid-fall and refused to let go, and of herself, no longer just surviving, but living, truly, impossibly living. Chapter 10. Dawn's promiscular awoke to find the world had shifted. Not physically, she was still in the lavender-scented chamber, still surrounded by stone and darkness. But through the bond, she felt Lucian's emotions like sunrise breaking, relief, vindication, and beneath it all, a cautious hope. The tribunal had ruled in their favor. She rose, following the pull of the bond through passages that felt almost familiar now. She found him in the main chamber, talking quietly with Serafini. Complete disgrace, Serafini was saying, satisfaction rich in her voice. Varen's been stripped of his council seat, his house placed under provisional oversight. And the best part? Celine Greymore has been summoned to stand trial before mortal courts and the Accord Council for conspiracy and attempted murder. Alara, Lucian's presence shifted toward her, and she felt his attention like warmth. You should still be resting. I felt you. Through the bond, she moved to his side. It worked. The tribunal believed us. They had little choice. Morgana and Cassius's testimony about the signing, combined with the documents you retrieved and Varen's forced confession, he sounded tired but satisfied. The evidence was overwhelming. Even the houses sympathetic to Varen's expansion had to acknowledge the Accord violations. What happens now? Now? Serafini stood, and Alara heard her stretch. Now we rebuild. Strengthen the wards here. Repair relationships with the other houses. And probably deal with approximately 500 years worth of paperwork documenting everything that happened. 500 years? Vampire bureaucracy. Serafini's tone was wry. We're immortal, which means we have time to document everything in excruciating detail. You'll love it. She's joking, Lucian interjected. Mostly. But Serafini's right, there's work ahead. Restoring House Corvinus's standing. Ensuring Varen's defeat doesn't create a power vacuum that causes worse problems. And my brother? Lucian's hand found hers. The mortal authorities have been informed of your survival. Celine's claim to the Greymore estate is being challenged. There will be investigations, trials. It will take time, but I can't exactly walk back into my old life. No, his thumb traced her knuckles. But you could build a new one. The estate could be managed by appointed stewards. Your inheritance secured through legal proxies. You wouldn't have to hide, but you wouldn't have to return to a place filled with painful memories either. Alara processed this slowly. And where would I be? While the estate is managed and the trials unfold? Here. Lucian's voice was quiet but certain. With me, if you want. As my partner in maintaining the Accords. As he hesitated. As whatever you choose to be. Lady of House Corvinus has a nice ring to it, Serafini offered. Though technically you'd need a formal title. Consort? Bond partner? We haven't had a mortal in that position in over a century, so the terminology is fuzzy. Serafini, Lucian warned. What? She should know what she's getting into. Official functions, political negotiations, the occasional assassination attempt occasional. I'm joking, mostly. Serafini's hand squeezed Alar's shoulder. But truly, if you're staying, you should understand what that means. You'll be part of House Corvinus. Protected, yes, but also visible. a symbol of mortal vampire cooperation. Some will love you for it. Others will see you as a target, more dangerous than being thrown from towers. Different, dangerous. Serafini's voice sobered. But you won't face it alone. You'll have Lucian, me, the whole house infrastructure. And she paused. You'll have the choice, always, to leave, to stay, to change the terms. The bond doesn't trap you. It just means wherever you go, you'll never be truly alone. Alar absorbed this, feeling the weight and gift of it simultaneously. A week ago, she'd been isolated, her father dying, her brother's resentment building toward violence. Now she stood in a vampire's sanctuary, bonded to an immortal lord, with a future she couldn't have imagined. I want to stay, she said, finally. I want to help build what we fought for. Show that mortals and vampires can be partners, not predator and prey. Then you'll need training. Lucian's tone turned practical. Self-defense. Vampire politics and protocol. How to navigate house hierarchies. And his voice softened. How to manage the bond. It's still new, still intense. You'll need to learn to shield your emotions, or every fear and worry will bleed to me constantly. Is that a problem? No. But it might be for you. Privacy matters. His hand cupped her face. I don't want you to feel exposed or vulnerable because of what we share. Teach me then. She covered his hand with hers. Teach me everything. I'm not afraid of the work. I know. She heard the smile in his voice. You charged into collapsing catacombs. I think you can handle vampire political theory. Speaking of which, Serafini interjected, the council wants to meet you formally. Not as a witness this time, but as Lucian's acknowledged partner. It's ceremonial, mostly show your face, accept their tedious speeches about honor and cooperation. Try not to fall asleep during Elder Thane's 40-minute discourse on historical accord precedents. When? 3 days. Enough time for you to recover, for Lucian to coach you on protocol, and for me to find you a dress that doesn't scream I've been living in catacombs. Serafini stood. Which reminds me I should check on the repairs. The eastern wards are still unstable. She left, her footsteps fading down the passage. Alone with Lucian, Alara felt the bond settle between them, no longer overwhelming, but present, constant. Are you afraid? Lucian asked quietly. Of what comes next? Terrified, she admitted, but also, excited? Is that strange? No, his forehead touched hers, that gesture becoming familiar. It's human, and it's one of the things I love about you. Your ability to feel fear and excitement simultaneously. To face the unknown without letting terror paralyze you. You said love. I did. No hesitation. Too soon, probably. Too intense. But the bond makes lying pointless, and he pulled back slightly. I love you, Alara Greymore. Your courage. Your stubbornness. The way you see the world through touch and sound, and refuse to let blindness limit you. The way you make me believe, after 2 centuries of cynicism, that the future might actually be better. Tears pricked her eyes. I love you too. Even though I've only known you a week. Even though it's insane. The best things usually are. His thumb wiped away a tear that escaped. We'll figure it out. One day at a time. One crisis at a time. Together, together, he echoed. They stood like that for a long moment, wrapped in each other and the bond that tied them. Then Lucian stirred. I should show you something. Before the council meeting, before the political machinery starts moving again, he took her hand. Come with me. He led her deeper into the catacombs, past the familiar chambers into places she hadn't yet explored. The air grew warmer, and she smelled something unexpected. Earth. Growing things. Where are we? My garden. He guided her forward carefully. I created it decades ago. A place that's just mine. No politics. No house obligations, just peace. Her fingers found leaves soft, healthy. She felt soil beneath them, rich and loamy. You grow things, underground, spelled lights, careful irrigation, obsessive attention to detail. His voice held self-deprecation. It's impractical and indulgent, but it's beautiful. Alara moved through the space, touching different plants, herbs, vegetables, flowers. You nurture life even though you're technically dead? He was beside her now. Yes, maybe that's why it matters. A reminder that death doesn't mean the end of caring. The end of creating. She turned to him. Show me. Teach me their names. How you tend them. Make this our place. Our place. He repeated softly. I'd like that. As dawn broke somewhere above a dawn Lucian would never see but Alara could feel in the subtle shift of air they walked through the underground garden. He named each plant, explained his careful systems, shared this secret part of himself, and Alara understood. This was his promise. Not just protection or partnership, but the quiet moments, the shared spaces, the building of life in darkness. They had survived the fall, the conspiracies, the violence. Now came the harder part, learning to thrive. But as Lucian's hand found hers among the growing things, as the bond hummed between them, steady and true, Alara thought they just might manage it, one day at a time, one moment of impossible beauty at a time, together. Epilogue 6 months later. Alara stood in the council chambers not as a witness or victim, but as Lady of House Corvinus, officially recognized, formally bonded, undeniably present. The other houses had adjusted, slowly, sometimes grudgingly, but they'd adjusted, and when she spoke about mortal vampire cooperation, about the future they could build together, they listened, because she was living proof that falling didn't mean breaking, that sometimes the greatest strength came from accepting the hand that caught you, and learning to fly.